everyone. Welcome to another Overrated Film Saturday. I apologize, this video has to unfortunately be uploaded late. I was pretty busy throughout this technically past week and did not have time to upload everything until now. I did upload some videos that I wanted to upload for yesterday already, but I didn't have time to finish everything because there were just way too many videos to get caught up on. But I should be caught up by the end of today. So basically for this Overrated Film Saturday, I thought it'd be interesting to dive a little bit back to 2015 and kind of explore one of the films that I think got really overhyped this past year and did make a significant chunk of change at the box office, and I thought would be worthy of exploration. And as you can see by the title, I'm going to be briefly addressing the film San Andreas, starring none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And basically, to give you an idea of how much this film made over 400,000 or 400, excuse me, yeah, $400 million. So yeah, it did make a significant amount of money. And it definitely tries to do a lot of what already has been seen in a lot of these kinds of disaster movies. Because San Andreas is basically supposed to refer to the San Andreas Fault that exists within California, that supposedly in a gap of now and 10,000 years may or may not split up the state. And the way in which they execute this is so overblown. It's so ridiculous, and it really does feel like watching 2012, that film, but in just the context of the San Andreas Fault in California. That's really the thing that really is only pretty much the distinct part of this movie, unfortunately. And the thing is that there's too much action within this film. Like a lot of these other disaster films, they don't build up enough development with the characters, and this is really what makes it not go in a positive direction, at least in my opinion, because it tries to overextend the amount of CGI, the amount of stuff that they can get falling on the ground, the amount of, people they can get to basically run away and scream and, do all of the things that you come to expect from a disaster movie to do. And it's just way too excessive, and it's something that I think a lot of people have seen already time and time again. And there's just nothing to back anything up from what it's ultimately trying to present. And we see the complicated family dynamics that we saw in 2012 and a lot of these other disaster movies. And it really doesn't add anything new to the table. I mean, and really ultimately what we get is fairly similar to a lot of these other disaster movies, where there's this one guy who has a particular set of skills that will ultimately allow him to somehow try and rescue his family. And in this case, it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's character, whose name is Ray Janes, and he is basically a rescue helicopter pilot. So those, I guess, come pretty in handy considering the fact that it's an earthquake, although some of that goes completely out of hand, like you would expect. I mean, it's the same thing as a lot of these other disaster movies where the plots pretty much repeat themselves. And here it's clearly a repetition of other disaster movies that we have seen time and time again, and we don't see any amount of energy or thought put into any of it. And this is really where a lot of these films really do fall flat, unfortunately. And I understand why people were sold on this though, because again, it is disaster. It is kind of stupid and full blown and ridiculous. It's kind of like, Jurassic World in a way, and it kind of over exaggerates things. And I understand over exaggeration can be fun and it can be engaging, and a lot of people like that. I think where it crosses the line for me is when just within this genre it happens every single film, and they don't try to do anything new whatsoever with the material that they have. Um, and that's the thing too, is when you really look at a lot of the way in which, again, the way these complicated family dynamics are structured, the way in which you look at these cookie cutter characters, you don't have any emotional attachment to really anything, and I think that's something that's kind of unfortunate, and really something that you would want to have within a disaster film. Like, you would want to feel sorry for the people who are getting hurt, but you don't really care because nothing is really going on that is of substance. It's just all spectacle. And I think that's the biggest issue that I have with a lot of these disaster films, is that they rely too much on spectacles. They rely too much on trying to be all about the presentation of the disaster. They're more so about the disaster than the actual story behind the disaster. And it's just ridiculous. And I'm sure there were probably scientists in that movie theater probably laughing so hard at how inconsistent to the science this movie probably is, and how just outrageous it is. And it would be nice had they taken, again, if disaster films actually took a little bit of the serious science to heart, considering the fact that disasters are science related, like these are actual things that could potentially happen. And you'd think they would have at least some scientists that would at least give an understanding as to, yeah, this could potentially happen, or this could not really happen, or, at least have some kind of thought behind the disaster. But unfortunately, we don't really get this here. And it exists with a lot of disaster films. Like, this is almost, I mean, it's hard to say if I believe this is the worst of them, because they're all pretty much the same. They follow the same generic formula time and time again with no substance, and it's sad and it's unfortunate that these films get really hyped up as being, entertainment, and all they offer is just really fancy CGI, crazy explosions, and nothing really happening, and just people trying to rescue other people, but we not really caring because there's no real uh, effort put into the relationship. So, that's just my honest thoughts, though, on this film. I mean, it's definitely not like as horrible as maybe some other films that were attempting to somehow be relevant, like, for example, The Day After Tomorrow, hyping up the global warming, or, I mean, at least it wasn't trying to kind of be innovative, I guess, in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it literally was selling you, here, you want to see explosions and disaster? Here's your movie. Go be entertained. And I'm totally not against the idea of that kind of entertainment, but when I see it time and time again, it just kind of frustrates me. It just goes, are there really no ideas? Is there really nothing else that they could pull? Because you could still have the cool disaster, It's not like you're taking away the disasters. Just give me a good story behind it. Just give me a story that's not riddled with these cliches that we've seen time and time again. And please do not please rid me of all of the crazy shenanigans, because why do we need them? Why do we need them? They're not necessary. Uh, but I think that's really all I can say as far as this movie is concerned. I mean, it's it's an interesting and very kind of uh, good choice, I think, to focus on, in particular San Andreas, because it is like one of those big ifs, kind of in the same way the Yellowstone's sort of a big iffy too, as to whether or not there could be a potential disaster that could, be very damaging. But it's execution, and here it just doesn't seem all too there. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say about it. It just doesn't leave an impression on you after watching it, and that's kind of where I sort of was just annoyed, and I really didn't understand why it got so many people to just go and watch it. Just don't get it. Um, and especially even in theaters too. I mean, you're seeing the same exact thing over and over again. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say though about this particular film, but I'm more than happy to hear what anyone else has to say. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and a happy new year.